The Virgo new moon calls our attention to how our daily actions take us toward or away from our long-term vision. Plus, Mercury goes direct and the equinox is here. Stay tuned for all of this and more. Hi, I'm Lori Barnes, the astrologer who helps people find their true calling and take action towards manifesting it. As we move into mid-September, we have a Virgo new moon and Mercury goes direct on the same day. Things are shifting, just like the season is changing. And well, just 1 week after the Virgo new moon is the Libra equinox. All of these energies mix together to create a unique blend that represents the quality of time. Every year, the Virgo new moon happens and the equinox happens, but the configuration of the other planets isn't always the same. And this year, just hours after the Virgo new moon phase begins, that's when Mercury goes direct. So I'm going to be talking about how to synthesize all of these things together. The first thing that I want to share is the date and time the new moon phase starts. The beginning of a moon phase only starts after the moon catches up with the sun. Every month we have a new moon, and the moon moves at a much faster pace than the sun. So the moon kind of moves around and it catches up with the sun in the next sign. Any type of new moon ritual or intention setting that you do should be in the new moon phase, not before, because the phase before the new moon is the balsamic moon phase or the waning crescent. And that's the last phase of the previous lunar cycle. And you want to let that cycle end and then do your new moon activities in the actual new moon phase. So you won't be able to look up in the sky and see when the previous moon phase is ending, or when the moon phase is ending and when the new moon phase begins, because the sky is dark, and it's dark both at the end of the balsamic phase and at the beginning of the new moon phase. I'm going to share that information with you so that you know. If you're on the west coast of the US, the new moon phase will start at 6:40 p.m. Thursday evening. That's September the 14th at 6:40 p.m. If you're on the East Coast, it'll be at 9:40 p.m. And if you're here in Italy, where I'm broadcasting from, it'll be early Friday morning, that's September 15th at 3:40 a.m. And this new moon in Virgo is at 21 degrees of Virgo. The new moon is the first phase of 8 phases in the monthly lunar cycle. And, that cycle represents the growth of light to the fullness at the full moon. And then it wanes into darkness at the new moon. And, this lunar cycle represents the cycle of life that we see all around us, the cycle of life, death, rebirth, and renewal. We see this every month with the new moon that goes in order of the zodiac signs. Each month we have a new moon in the next sign. The symbology of the monthly lunar cycle is like a reminder from nature of how life is cyclical. It's this cyclical nature of all living things, and most non-animate things as well, like companies, cars, careers. We're taught in Western culture that life is more linear way, always growing bigger and better. But that's really contrary to the reality that life is a series of cycles with beginnings, middles, and endings. And when you embrace this cyclical type of living over the linear type of living, it makes sense. It's getting in tune with the reality of life, with nature, the natural cycles. Living things and inanimate things have a birth, a peak, a period of maturity and wisdom, and then a winding down to rest and eventually die in order to be reborn, the metaphorical death. This is just a great topic to meditate on over this upcoming new moon weekend. So let's talk about the Virgo new moon. Virgo is an earth sign, and it's a highly adaptable sign. It has mercurial qualities thanks to its ruler Mercury. So this is a sign that's both grounded as an earth sign and objective, rational, and logical, thanks to Mercury, the intellectual Mercury. Now we have the Virgo new moon, and and the sun in Virgo, plus Mercury, which is retrograde, is also traveling through Virgo right now. So when I think of the sign of Virgo, I think of the harvest, taking something in its raw form and then preparing it for consumption. When we harvest crops, it becomes food or ingredients. And when we harvest a plant, it becomes an essential oil or a medicine. If we harvest our skills, they become jobs, and we create innovative things, so and so on. So, all things have this cycle of life. So think about what's going on in your life right now. What are you harvesting? Or better yet, what have you been growing that is now ready to be harvested? Or what are you growing that you want to harvest at some point in the future? You've been doing something in the last few months and years of your life. So look to that. What are you growing and what stages are these things? Are you ready to harvest something? And if you're not, figure out kind of where you are. What phase and stage are you in? Or what phase and stage of your metaphorical crops, what phase are they in? Are they in the beginning, the middle, or the end? Is it harvest time? Do your crops need some treatments or some remedies? Think of your crops, I'm using that word as like a metaphorical term, but they're really your investments. They're the things that you put your time and your energy into. Your time is one of the greatest resources that you'll ever have in a lifetime. So because of the retrogrades, it's likely that over the last few months, you've realized that some adjustments are necessary. And actually, there's many planets that are retrograde, but especially the Venus and Mercury retrograde have really helped us kind of like focus in on those things. Now, Venus is direct. It went direct on September the 3rd. So it's still picking up speed. She's in her post-retrograde period. It's time to take action on any unresolved relationship issues that came to light in the Venus retrograde. So if you haven't done that already, that is another thing that would be good for you to do in the new moon phase. Right now, Mercury is retrograde, but it's getting ready to turn direct, and it's been retrograde since August the 23rd. So this period of time right now, leading up to the Virgo new moon, is a good time to review what you've sowed with your time. What have you planted? What have you invested with your time and energy? And what course corrections do you need to make? Learning from reflection, introspection, and review is the most productive thing you can do at this time. Mercury is retrograde in the sign of Virgo. This gives a special kind of reflective reviewing power. It's like a portal has opened up, giving you an opportunity to objectively assess, like, what have you been doing with your time on a day-to-day basis? And then decide, like, is this taking you where you want to go or not? Now, a note on making your new moon ritual or your new moon intentions, you want to do them after the new moon phase has started. So, and you want to write up some action items based on this reflection and introspective look at your own metaphorical crop. Do that after the new moon phase has begun, which I shared with you earlier. Also think about, do you need to reframe some of the words that you use? So, sometimes just taking on a different perception of your past can help you move forward with inspiration. So think about the words that you use when you're reflecting back. And instead of criticizing what you've done, focus on what went right and how you can learn and use your experience to move forward. One of the Virgo traits that can be kind of more on the shadow side is that your inner critic can kind of run wild, and your internal dialogue can turn negative toward yourself. So at the Virgo new moon, a good intention to set would be to use self-compassionate language when you're talking to yourself. Really watch that language of what you're saying to yourself. Now, the Mercury retrograde has us focused on reflecting backward so you can move forward. And these Mercury retrograde cycles, they happen 3 times a year, so that the progress that you made when Mercury is direct can have a chance to settle down. And you take this short pause, and during the retrograde, you go and you review what you've done since that last Mercury retrograde. Evaluate what may be missing or what needs to be updated. And then as we get to the end of the retrograde and in the post shadow period, you implement those changes. You start taking action. And I find when I finish a project or a big chunk of a project, I can then go back to the beginning and see the adjustments more easily. than if I was trying to make it perfect the first time around. I mean, it's not always clear until you finished the first draft of a project what needs to be updated, or you can break big projects down into phases. This post retrograde period, post Mercury retrograde period, starts right after the new moon. It literally goes direct on Friday, just hours after the new moon phase starts. And that's a statement, right? The sky is making a statement that during the new moon period, you also want to start implementing what you've learned from the Mercury retrograde. Spend this weekend taking action or putting together your action strategy, because the whole weekend is going to be new moon energy. The Virgo energy is, really prominent because the sun, moon, and Mercury are all traveling through this sign. Virgo loves order. It's great at analyzing and assessing, decluttering anything. With its mercurial qualities, you can solve problems with both intelligence and practicality. Virgo is symbolic with critical thinking. You can just kind of cut through the noise and get straight to the heart of the matter. Get your chart out and look at what house Virgo occupies. The topics and people represented by that house is going to give you a lot more information on what part of your life is going to be activated by the Virgo new moon. So this week's Virgo new moon features Saturn, which is opposite the new moon in Pisces. Saturn is also in retrograde motion. So with Saturn and Mercury retrograde at the same time in an opposition, in the Virgo Pisces axis, there's this call to, make adjustments to your daily routine in order to align yourself with your long-term vision, your strategy, your purpose. Mercury is going to go direct, and so it's going to be a really great time for you to listen to Saturn's call to keep your eye on the long-term vision, right? What's down the road, while you're working on what you're doing in your day-to-day and your week-to-week calendar. What do you keep in and what do you cut out? Think about that. Now, Jupiter's involved as well. Jupiter connects with a few planets during the Virgo new moon, and Jupiter is also retrograde. So, this contributes to the slower pace, the introspective new moon vibe. Jupiter's typical anything goes optimism is more grounded and realistic than usual. And this can help keep you from overpromising and under-delivering. Jupiter's usual optimism is more practical right now in the sign of Taurus and retrograde, and less adventurous than usual. Jupiter's really coming from a reflective perspective right now. Jupiter retrograde has the attitude of patience and perseverance that's going to pay off in the long run by tapping into your wisdom and applying it in a steady but consistent pace. This is because of Jupiter expressing itself through the sign of Taurus. Jupiter is traveling in Taurus along with Uranus. Uranus is also in Taurus. It's been in the sign for a while. This combination, it's like a spark for new innovation that contributes to material growth and that builds in a steady pace over time. Uranus is the planet of disruption and innovation and the unexpected. If you're feeling stuck, be open to ideas that are outside of the box, to use the cliche, or, like a non-traditional approach. And you may also need to go with more practical or simple solutions. Sometimes just simplifying things may be your best solution. If you feel like you're really overloaded with too much work, too much detail work, especially, try to simplify. In addition to traveling with Jupiter, Uranus makes a trine aspect with the sun and moon. So this does add a little bit of excitement to the new moon. All these details, the detailed work that you are likely working on with the retrograde. It's going to help you correct course and redesign and realign material from the past. But it also, with Uranus, indicates that you can tap into some innovative solutions as you're making these updates and reframes and realignments on projects. And your innovative solution may just be like how to simplify things down. So many of us have picked up and worked on past or current projects that were started but not finished during the Venus and Mercury retrogrades. We worked on them during those retrogrades. So now is the time we should be really involved with taking action on what came up during those retrogrades. and even wrapping up some of those redesigns and realignments. Think back to what was going on in July and August, because that's the time period I'm talking about. You want to tap into innovative but practical tactics that Jupiter and Uranus are kind of serving up to us through this easy flowing trine between the earth signs Virgo and Taurus. So in summary, it's time to start manifesting lasting improvements. Many things from the past may have reemerged as priorities or unresolved matters that need attention. You want to learn by doing some introspection and reflection that these retrogrades have pulled you into, and then put that information to work for you. Tap into this Virgo energy of the Mercury retrograde and the new moon, and use your critical assessment. Come up with ways to improve your current projects. Use the Uranian innovation energy and the practical Jupiter optimism to develop a clever strategy. Listen to the wisdom of Saturn and keep an eye on the long-term vision. The pace of time will likely continue to seem a bit slower with so many planets retrograde, but we are coming out of it with Mercury going direct and Venus is already direct, and they're both going to be picking up speed this weekend once we're into the new moon phase. If you want to learn more about that, just about retrogrades in general, or how these planets are active in your chart, please schedule a consultation with me. When you have an astrological consultation, then you can really go much more deep into your chart and what's going on in terms of activations right now. Now, the last thing I wanted to talk about is the equinox. The equinox arrives on September 22nd or 23rd, depending on where you live. The equinox marks when the sun moves into the sign of Libra, and when we have equal day and equal night in terms of light. In the northern hemisphere, we're going to move into the fall, while if you're in the southern hemisphere, you're moving into the spring. The equinox is the time of the year when we're reminded to consider how well we are maintaining balance in our lives, right? Equal light, equal day, equal night. So there's, nature again giving us some great information just by modeling it out in the world for us year by year. Now, the retrogrades will have hopefully shown us some information about balance already. And as we move into the new moon phase under the sign of Virgo, and then a week later into the equinox, we have the opportunity to hone in on our long-term vision by adjusting our daily routine, so that we're taking daily steps in the right direction. The Virgo and Pisces axis has been highlighted in late August and most of September, and that's asking us to evaluate our daily activities, Virgo, and how well they tie into our long-term vision, represented by Pisces. When we move into the Libra season on the equinox, the Libra and Aries axis is highlighted. And with Libra and Aries, we're asked to consider how well are we balancing our time between self and others. The question is, are you overly self-focused? Are you overly other-focused? Or are you maintaining a balance? And of course, it's going to depend on what part of life you're talking about, because it can be different, right? At work, you may have a balance, but maybe with your partner, it's different, or with your friends or with your family. So, you want to look at each relationship. But we're going to talk more about that in the upcoming full and new moon episodes. Here's some activity ideas for you to do under the Virgo new moon. Go on a hayride or get out into nature. Take a walk near trees, pastures, or fields. Virgo is an earth sign. So, putting your feet on the ground, like take your shoes and socks off and touch your foot to the ground, touch the dirt. That would be a good thing to do. Design a new health or a well-being routine. Do a cleanse. Virgo is a sign that's connected with digestion and health. It's also connected to organization. So organize your files or your closet or your desk. Do some spring cleaning. Purge your closet. Get rid of clutter. Get rid of clutter in your home, in garage, or at your office. Declutter any part of your life. Okay, set an intention to create or follow a plan for well-being. Think about, balance in your life between how you spend your time day to day and week to week, and where you see yourself in 1 year or further down the road, and see if any changes or balances are needed. The equinox is a great time to take action to bring more balance in your life, especially as it relates to your well-being and health. Remember that Mercury turns direct later in the day on Friday, so be extra careful to be clear about dates and times when you're making plans. You want to schedule some extra time in between appointments. You want to drive extra careful. The post-retrograde period is an opportunity to wrap up. So I'm going to recap the Mercury retrograde dates for you just so you have them. The pre-shadow period started on August the 3rd, and it went retrograde on August 23rd. It's going direct on September 15th, right after the new moon phase starts. And then the post-retrograde shadow period will end on September 30th. So kind of aim to wrap up your retrograde work by then. And the degree of Mercury retrograde was between 21 to 8 degrees of Virgo. So if you have planets or points in your natal chart that fall in Virgo or any of the mutable signs, which are Virgo, Sagittarius, Pisces, or Gemini, then you're likely to feel this retrograde the strongest. Remember that the ending and beginning of the new moon phase, so the ending, the balsamic phase, and the beginning of the new moon phase is when the moon is the darkest in the sky, right before it's reborn. That can be a time when you feel more tired or in need of more rest. So think about that as you progress through the week. Do try to take it easy and have as much of a balanced pace as you can. The weekend is going to be the perfect time to put together your strategy, start taking action, because you're going to have that new moon energy. Pace yourself so you get the most out of the weekend and come out of it feeling refreshed. I'm going to wrap up today with an inspirational quote for you that relates to the Virgo full moon. The first one is from Eleanor Brown, who says, "Clutter is not just physical stuff, it's old ideas, toxic relationships, and bad habits. Clutter is anything that does not support your better self." I have one more, and this is from Anatole France, who says, "To accomplish great things, we must not only act, but also dream. Not only plan, but also believe." So I think those two quotes are very applicable to our Virgo full moon. I really appreciate you watching this video, making it all the way to the end. And if you enjoyed what you watched today, please hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. I also write a blog on new and full moons, so please subscribe to my email and I'll deliver that to your inbox. If you would like a personal astrology consultation so you can learn more about your chart, what to expect from retrogrades, or just get a better understanding of your natal chart in general, please schedule a consultation with me at Lori Barnes Astrology, and I will put the link below. So thank you again, and I'll see you next time. Ciao.